friends, welcome back to Arc Tutorials. This is Angular 21 complete tutorial series for absolute beginners as well as expert developers joining us from previous versions of Angular. There are a lot of breaking changes, especially if you are stuck in somewhere around Angular 15, 16, 17, 18. A lot has changed. There are a lot of new concepts with respect to building forms with signals and much more. Even routing has changed, how you inject the HTTP client module. So a lot of things have changed. So I'm sure that if you're following this tutorial, I'll make sure that in this 10-part series, you'll be able to master and build an Angular 21 application from scratch with me. That being said, let's get started. This is part 1 today. Before I start coding, please do continue to support me by liking, commenting, and sharing these videos. Don't forget to get your full stack interview series book at arctutorials.gumroad.com. If you like my work and tutorials, please do consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/arctutorials. So today, what are we doing? Today we are doing step 1, which is setup and project folder overview. All right, that's what we'll be doing, and less of theory and more of practical hands-on. So let's get started. I'll fire up the editor. I'm using Visual Studio Code. Now I'm going to go ahead and create one brand new folder, Angular 21. Right click, open an integrated terminal. All right, so first things first, make sure that you have Node installed if you're fresh, and if you're new here, also check for npm just to make sure that you have all the things to work with. So Node and npm are required for you to set up. All right. Okay, so first thing what we'll do is we'll do installation of Angular. So we are going to say npm install -g, which is globally, and then we are going to write Angular/CLI. Now this usually brings the latest whatever is there, nightly build or whatever. But if you want a specific version, you can write @21. So you're explicitly telling pull the latest version 21 and install it. This may take a couple of minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, but in the meanwhile, please do hit that like button if you're enjoying this tutorial. So it says added 30 packages and changed 281 packages. So that means it has installed. Now let's go ahead and create the application. So let me make a running notes for you. So the first step we did was to check the node -- version. Then we did npm. If you don't have it, you would need to install these two. The next important thing we did is npm install -g @angular/CLI @21. That means we are installing the version 21. The next we'll do is we'll create an application. So to do that, you can use npx, that is node packager, and we'll use Angular / now this is where you will specify your project name basically. Okay, so you can do something like Angular/CLI @21, and you can say ng new, npx new, or you can directly do that. Okay, so since we have already installed it, you don't have to do it. Either you can run npx here, or you can directly do a either npm or npx, whichever supports, but I would say stick to npm if that's straightforward. So once we have done it, so you can just verify it by saying ng -version. So then it should show you 21. See here, it's showing 21. That means you have installed the Angular version 21, but we haven't created an application yet. So let's go ahead and create that application. So ng will be the commands for Angular. So here you are going to say new, the project name. So what kind of project we'll build? Think of something, whatever you want to build. What comes to my mind right away is, let's say we'll build a SaaS dashboard where it's like an enterprise tool where people can buy and kind of check what softwares they have bought, which one needs to be renewed, etc., etc. And then it will ask you these options. What would you like to use? I like to use SCSS. That's what I'm selecting, and you should also. So I can show you how to use SCSS instead of just plain CSS. Do you need server-side rendering? Not in this one for now. And now this is very important. Which AI tools do you want to configure with best practices, right? Now here, this is what is very important. I am choosing Cursor But again, if you are wanting to use Claude or Gemini, etc., that's your choice. But Cursor is pretty good. So let it create the application, and the command we just did was ng new followed by the project name. That's what you will do. That project name can be anything that you want to give. For the AI agent thing, I selected Cursor. Okay. So now it says successfully initialized Git and our application is ready. So when you expand, you'll see SaaS dashboard and the app coming up. So let's run it and we'll see. It says is not available because we have to be in the project folder, and then we will do ng serve. Okay, so it will take a couple of seconds to build. Okay, it's done. So now when you open localhost 4200, you should be able to copy that localhost 4200 and let's go here and type that localhost 4200. It says hello SaaS dashboard. That means your application is up and running. Okay, now so you got your application up and running using ng-serve. This is how you run the application. All right, so today this is enough, but there are some important breaking changes that I want to walk you through first. Okay, now here when you open your angular.json and package.json, so package.json, let me quickly walk you through all the folders and that would give you a good structure. All right, so folder structure, the first and foremost, .angular.vs code you can ignore. Okay, so those are the internal ones which are maintained by Visual Studio Code and Angular application. You can ignore them. They are not used. They are not used in dev or prod or anything that's not related to application. That's the local setup that it's running on. Node modules. Now this is important. This has all the configurations and all the dependency packages that Angular works with, or any module that you install, all the dependency modules go inside this. Again, we don't change it, or inside this folder, we don't change it, we don't add it, delete here. So you can ignore this as well. Okay, it's safe. Every time you can manage this entire folder from package.json. I'll show that in just a bit. So you can ignore this for now. And remember, when you check in your code, make sure that you don't check in node modules. You never do that. It's always part of the git ignore file. That means you are ignoring this node modules. You don't check in. But when you run a pipeline, npm install and all that, it will automatically bring it. Now public folder is where your this is the root, basically root folder. Now this is used for storing favicon, images, or any files, static files that you want to do. So this is accessible. Public folder is accessible over the website, or it's like the root folder, right? It can be accessible anywhere. Again, don't keep any sensitive data. Or any restricted data in this particular folder. As the name suggests, it's public. Anybody can access it. Don't store the code as well, just so if you know. All right, the next is the source folder. This is the important folder, most important. This is where your source code lies. Now, when you expand, you would see a default app component called app. Inside source app, there is always one default component, which is app, that gets shipped with the application. All right. Now, when you we'll go through that, the remaining ones. Just understand for now that each component, if you expand the app, it has some configurations, SCSS, routes, and files. We'll walk through that later. For now, understand there will be a template file, which is HTML. There will be a style file ending with .scss in my case because I have chosen scss. If you choose css, it would be .css and so on, .less, etc. Then there would be a component file which is your main ts. This is where the logic goes. This is where the style goes. This is the template or the HTML. All right, that's the general structure of your source or component for that matter. Now, the next that you will see, I told you So the next one is .editor config. Now this is specific to Visual Studio Code, so you can ignore unless you want to make any changes locally for your editor. Let me quickly show you. Now here you can set character indentation, etc., etc. If you want double tab, single tab, those things. Git ignore, this is the file I was talking about. You add whatever you don't want to be included. So node modules is already included. See, these are all the files that you don't want to check in at any time. Okay, that's what git ignore means. So git ignore files and folders you don't want to commit. The next is angular.json. So this is the angular.json will have entire project metadata. Now what I mean by metadata is it would have structure, commands, projects. Under projects, you see, you would have the schematics, what schematics it's using, what style it is using, what is the prefix it should add, right? App or source root, what is the one, what is the command that it would take to build, where should the output go, where is the path to the CSS. All of that metadata is inside this. Under the configuration, you would have production, development. You can add more as you go, like say UAT, etc., etc. If you want certain configurations separately, all of that you can add it into this configurations. We'll do this later, not today, but today your understanding is what is Angular JSON. It is the entire Angular application metadata where you have the project setup, schematics, style guide, everything that's pointing to where should the output folder be and those things. So in short, you can say prefix, output, style path, etc. These are the common ones that you will work with. The next is package lock. You can ignore that you don't modify or do anything with it. It is updated based on your package.json, and you can ignore this. We don't change, we don't add, edit or delete in this file at all. All right, next is the main important file, which is package.json. Now this is the important file which carries the exact dependencies, what needs to be installed, etc. So if I open package.json, it will have the scripts. So when I type ng, it knows I'm referring to Angular. To start, I'm using ng-serve to start the application, to build, to test, to watch. If you want to use mock data or start some other, say mock API, you can set up your own scripts like this and JSON server, and you can have --watch DB and all of that. You can set up your own scripts as well. Then you have the overrides. If you want to override certain rules, you can define them here. Then comes the important part, which is dependencies. These are the things it's saying that our Angular application is dependent on these modules and which version needs to be imported when we install it. Very, very important. I'll show you this example in just a bit. So it has the exact dependencies, script details, and also dev dependencies. You don't do anything with dev dependencies. Again, these are for internal mapping. Okay, remember that. Dev dependencies you don't upload, you don't change, they are used for internal mapping. All right, so now let me show you one simple thing of ng package. Let's close this for now and let's say I close this, and now if I say npm install Zest, so now what I'm doing is I'm telling to install Zest framework into our Angular application. That entry will be going into package.json. So you can see under dependencies, it added Zest, and that is the version 30.2. Okay. So every time you manage anything in the packages, it goes into this definition of dependencies, and you can verify with this. So if I delete the node modules and do npm install, it will take the list of these modules and install it. So remember these things. Add through npm, and the list of dependencies is maintained in package.json. All right, the next is the readme, which is basically how to run this app and basic default file, but you should obviously edit it, modify it if you are doing an open source project or in your enterprise company. This is your readme copy for documentation. The next is tsconfig.json. Now you're running TypeScript, so you might want to do some configuration changes in terms of linting, whether do you want the compiler to be strict, whether you want to target with ES 2022, what is the module that you want to use, and all the dependencies. Usually as a dev, you will not change this, but this is your TypeScript configuration of how to compile and set up your project build. tsconfig.json.spec. So whenever you see any file with .spec, that means it's a test file which is used for testing or unit testing and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is all you should know in terms of project folder and Angular application for now. You will see a lot of things are not there. For example, if you open app, there is no app routing module and all those basic modules. All of that is gone because now Angular is completely a standalone project with standalone components. So that's why you don't see any modules or dependencies anymore. I'll cover all of that as we move forward and build this entire tutorial. But for now, this is all you should know. You should be able to run your application, install it, run it, and go through this folder structure and get yourself comfortable with this. If you're comfortable with this, promise you the next steps will be pretty simple and easy. In the next part, we start building components. We'll set up some routes, CRUD, and all of that as we progress. So join me in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you like my work and tutorials. So thank you so much.